reason I'm always attracted to religious figures and the Bible text, and I'm not religious at all, so I have no idea, but everything I do has it in there. And of course I'm a musician, so I always put music in as well. But my issue is I'm too symmetrical. And I try to get away from it, but then it always ends up in, but.
I get the symmetry issue. I'm with you. I keep trying to break up symmetry, and I always end up symmetrical again. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there are like recovery programs for too much symmetry, but I don't necessarily think it's a detriment. But there are ways to talk about it in terms of, ways to address it. Now, in this piece, yes, this is a very symmetrical piece, and I see where you're trying to break up the symmetry, throw the clock there, throw that there, and I don't think there's a problem with it being symmetrical, because I'll address that a little more fully in a minute. I do want to say, in terms of this piece, I think this is a very nicely resolved piece. I think I think that you really have some nice, yes, very nice symmetry in it and all that stuff. But just by the very nature that you're using. That you said you're drawn to religious objects. Yeah. Most religious objects in themselves have symmetry to them. Yeah. And so part of it is your choice of interest. Yeah. It's kind of hard. Even the most, you think of the Last Supper, Da Vinci's Last Supper, for instance, and you have this long panel, but it's very symmetrical. It's very organized and orderly, and very symmetrical. Now, obviously, there's a lot of exceptions to that too. You have Baroque style paintings are not necessarily symmetrical, but you take something like this, you take a shrine. It's hard to break out of that just by the very nature of it and what it was designed to do. So, in terms of this, though, in terms of the piece, let's talk about some of the things that are really working for you. One of the things when you started off this piece, if you guys recall, this was a sort of an Indonesian sort of frame. And one of the things that Jillian did is she kept some of the colors that were original on there, and then she sort of dingied them down. She did that by dry brushing. So she dry brushed a white on there, and then she put some washes on there, and she brought back some other colors on there, repainted some other colors on there to bring back certain colors. So it's nice, it has a nice worn quality. The one thing I thought really made a difference in terms of this was, if you guys recall, the area behind the license plate, and this is the license plate here, the area behind the license plate, this was all a big opening. Okay, it was all that area that now has musical text on it, was big and vacuous. Now, one of the things, and this is something that can be easily overlooked, if you have an area that has a big vacant space in it, unless it's a three-dimensional object that you can move around and see from both sides, chances are you're going to hang it on a wall or set it up against a wall. So if your wall is bright purple, for instance, bright purple is what's going to be in those empty spots. That may be good, that may be horrible. It just depends on the piece and how it works with it. So if ever you have areas where the wall is going to show through, understand that the wall becomes part of the piece. So what Jillian did to address that is she ended up covering it up. She put the text, and that's nice. It adds a nice bit of spatial quality. It really exaggerates the space, of your little religious icon, and all that sort of stuff. I think that worked out really, really well. Honestly, though, in terms of the symmetry stuff, you can kind of try and force it. In terms of trying not to be symmetrical. Take an object, for instance. Since you're working with objects, try taking objects that are impossible to be symmetrical, and try and work with it that way. Yep. But if you're anything like me, you'll end up making those things symmetrical too, because you'll get a big long thing, and it'll be like this, and then you'll end up going, well, I put something else over here that matches it. And it's hard when you see things that way. It's just hard to it's hard to break out of it. It is.
Yeah, so. And I have to just move stuff around constantly for a week. Yeah. And then it just falls into place. But I always notice that I think it's asymmetrical, and it's fabulous. And I look at it and I go, no, this is exactly balancing this, and this is that. Even though it's these long things, right? Like they can be very big. Yeah. But I can't. It's almost like I can't live with it unless it's got some symmetry.
Yeah. You're not alone.
No, it just feels a little.
Yeah, and I definitely think that if you're drawn to religious iconography, I think that really it's what it is.
There,
yeah, but nicely done. Good job. Yay!